Welcome to More Fun with Finance. I'm Dr. William Elliott, coming to you from beautiful uptown Shaker Heights. Welcome to the class. I'm going to do a little bit of an introduction in this video and give you a heads up on some of the things that are going to be happening over the next 7 weeks. And look forward to meeting you all. One of the very first announcements, though, is that the weeks of July are all going to be asynchronous. I am going to be out of town. I'm hoping that I will be able to, in fact, I know I'll be able to have some Wi-Fi access. So I will be holding office hours, and I will be holding a few sessions at the regularly scheduled time. That's Mondays and Wednesdays at 6:30 to 9:15 Eastern Time. Pardon me. And so I plan on doing that. However, the lecture and the homework and the reading are all asynchronous. So I have lectures up on YouTube, and I'll get into the details of that as we go through this introduction. And I do look forward to seeing you all live during those sessions. We'll be able to go over any questions you have about the lectures, about the readings, about the homework, that sort of thing. However, I don't know exactly which week. I'm certain it's not going to be next week. More than likely not the following week, but there is a possibility, and most definitely the 2 weeks at the end of the month, I'll be able to hold some regular office hours at our regularly scheduled time. So without any further ado, let me jump into the slides here. I'm going to get out of your way so that you can see the slide deck, and I'm going to go through the introduction. So a couple of you are in the intermediate corporate finance class, the FN 4440. The rest of you are in the financial management class, FN 5551. The classes track well together, and so we've chosen to cross-list these classes. The topics are all the same. All right. So let me introduce the class a little bit here. We're going to go through I'm going to give you a bit of my background. We're going to have to save your introductions until we meet live. And then I'll talk a little bit about the course, not only the content, but some of the details about how to get to various aspects of the class, especially while we're async. And then some announcements. All right, here we go. So, as I said at the outset here, my name is Dr. William Elliott. I go by Dr. Elliott, Bill, Professor, whatever you're comfortable with. My undergraduate degree was actually not in business. It was in marine sciences, and I graduated from Texas A&M, thinking that maybe I'd be able to get a job with Jacques Cousteau. Most of you probably don't know that reference. Jacques Cousteau was actually the inventor of SCUBA, self-contained underwater breathing apparatus, and was also quite well known, especially in the U.S., as a cinematographer, a filmmaker. Had a regularly occurring show that brought to light a lot of the aspects about the ocean and the fragility of that. Some of the first underwater photography and film was just incredible at the time. Today, with what we have technology-wise, it makes it look like nothing. But at that time, the technology was at the very cutting edge. Anyway, that didn't work out. I did meet Jacques Cousteau, and I did get to go aboard Calypso, his vessel, his research vessel, when I was in Galveston. But nevertheless, I did go out and got a job at which I discovered I needed to understand something about business. So I actually went back and I got my MBA. I started at a school called Southwest Texas State, now known as Texas State, in San Marcos, Texas, and I finished up my program actually at UNC Wilmington over in North Carolina. That led me to a change of career midlife, and so I went back and I got my PhD, and I did all of that work at the University of Arizona in Tucson, Arizona. So for the last 31 years, I've been teaching finance, first at U of A, then at UW Oshkosh in Wisconsin, followed by Oklahoma State in Stillwater, Oklahoma. And then most recently, I was at UT El Paso. Now I've been here at John Carroll. This fall will be the beginning of my 10th year with John Carroll. So I've had a lot of experience. I love corporate finance. I love investments. And I hope that we have a great semester together. Give you a little bit more color on my background here. Non-academic work experience. I alluded to a little of that. I was actually a ship's carpenter and spar maker. I did that as an apprenticeship. It took the first year of apprenticeship or 2 years, and then I worked. I was working full time during the apprenticeship, but then another 3 years of working on the restoration of a square rig sailing vessel, which is now an actual sailing museum piece down in Galveston, Texas. She sailed up the East Coast to New York City, various spots along the Gulf Coast. She's stays quite active for a ship that was built in 1877. Iron hull, wooden decks, wooden spars. But I did some of that. I'd done some contracting. I built, done most of the house building, everything except pouring a basement. And that's about it. I've done framing, finish work, electrical, plumbing, roofing even. I haven't done slate roofing. Here in Shaker, we have a lot of slate. But nevertheless, I've done a fair amount of that in a prior career. And then I was the engineering manager and materials manager at a relatively small powerboat manufacturing plant. Glastron Boats was the company. You may still see those boats wandering around. They were highlighted in some of the Bond movies. Weekend at Bernie's had a Glastron in it. Even the Bat boat, if you go back way back, was a Glastron boat. And again, as I said, as I learned more about that industry, the ups and downs, I decided I wanted more stability, and I thought that a PhD was going to provide that. So far, for the most part, it's worked. My research interests are predominantly in the corporate finance realm. I've done a little bit in investment banking and also in security issuances and share prices. So sometimes I'll share some of that with you, especially when we start talking about stock splits and things of that nature. That is directly in the area that I am quite expert in. So there's a painting that was done by a famous marine artist of the bark Alyssa. She was built in 1877 in Aberdeen, Scotland, and I was responsible for doing a lot of the spars, these things, the masts, the yards, the jib boom. The lowers were steel, so I didn't do those, but I think they're all told there must have been 8, 10, over a dozen wooden spars that I was responsible for fabricating. I also laid the decks, did a lot of the teak railing, and a significant portion of the officers' quarters. So a lot of fun, different career. Avocations, I have way too many. I love photography. I've gotten back into photography since it's gone digital, and I was a photographer back in the old days of film and doing your own developing in the darkroom, and I much prefer Lightrooms. I much prefer working with the digital realm. We've done a lot of dog fostering, German Shepherds in particular, so we've had a number of dogs and cats. I love to go sailing. I have a sailboat out here on Lake Erie, and a little bit of music. I'm a guitar player. What are you all into music-wise? Drummers? Any brass? Maybe also maybe you're also a guitar player. I used to do a fair amount of astronomy and some backpacking back when we were out in the Southwest. That's not been so frequent up here in the Northeast. The weather is a little more miserable, and the hiking is just not as dramatic. There's some great spots though down in the Cuyahoga National Park. Don't get me wrong. And then Tai Chi for a bit of exercise. So that's my background in a nutshell. These are some of the dogs that we've had. This is our current pup right here. She is a beauty. Anyway, now when we do meet together, I'd like to learn more about your background and meet each one of you. So we'll hold off on this until we have a live session, and we'll get back to that. So here we're going to get into what the course is about. What is it? Why should you care? So this is really the second class, right? You all have had a introduction to finance, whatever it may be called, business finance. In the case of the undergrads, that's 312 or 3312. I don't know why we moved to four digits, but we did. So as far as grad students, you've either had 521 or 5521, where you learn about the very basics. And we're going to review some of that as we get started here this semester. But we're going to go much further beyond that and dig a lot deeper into the corporate realm. Various transactions that corporations take place or that corporations engage in. I always think of corporate finance as really a street. Think of it as a street, two sides to that street. One side is the corporation itself, which needs to engage in a variety of transactions, whether it's issuing a security, engaging in some sort of stock split or other activity, possibly developing a executive compensation plan, developing a payout policy, engaging in mergers and acquisitions, lease versus borrow buy decisions, refunding decisions. All those things fall under that realm of corporate finance and are things that corporations need to do. The other side of that street are investment bankers. The investment bankers make this happen. They are the grease that helps all of these transactions take place. They really, that's their bread and butter. Now, investment bankers have branched out a bit, as have hedge funds and private equity firms. They all kind of have blended together and become dealing with each other's business more so. So you look at the large investment banks, and not only do they deal with corporations and their transactions, but they also might have a division that does a variety of hedge funds, might have another division that's private equity, things of that nature. But their primary business is to help corporations engage in their transactions. So it's a very important area. There's always new developments. There are always new ideas coming out as to how to reduce the cost of those transactions, how to make them take place faster, increase market efficiency, all of these things. So it's a really exciting field. It's a lot of fun to work in. Why should I care? Well, finance, at its heart is really just concepts of time, money, and risk and how they are interrelated. But finance has a major impact on society in general. Usually the fraction of the overall economy that is labeled finance is in the teens, right? 15 to 20%. Typically, it varies over time, but that's a significant chunk of the economy. Why is it such a significant chunk? Well, because we're basically figuring out better ways to do things at every turn. There's always been improvements. If you go way back into the 1700s, when corporations were nascent, it was very difficult to do transactions. A great deal of research. Now, you move into the 20th century. Even trading a stock in the 20th century, mid 20th century, commissions were triple digits, $100+. Oops, how did I get back there? There we are. Now what are commissions? What do you pay on your Robinhood account? I've also included down here at the bottom, you'll notice the finance versus finance. My wife is always correcting me on this, so I looked it up a while back. And yes, both are acceptable. Might change depending on what part of the country you're in or who you're talking to, but Whether it's finance or finance, it's the same animal. We're doing the same stuff. I want to talk to you a little bit too about career paths. Many of you are probably thinking that finance is an area that you might want to work in, or maybe you already do, especially some of you who are in the MBA program. Maybe you already have a job in that area. But I do want to talk to you, those of you who are less informed, less knowledgeable about it, especially the undergrads. What's the first job that you think of when you think of somebody says they're in finance? Well, if you ask the average person on the street, they're going to say something like a stockbroker or a banker. Well, the stockbroker is actually in many ways wrong, right? Stockbrokers are typically salespeople. They're not directly related. I mean, they're certainly close to finance, and many stockbrokers are quite knowledgeable about finance. But really, what you're doing as a stockbroker is you're selling. You're a salesperson. So that's not always even a finance job. Banker, yes. But banking is just a small segment of finance. So while they employ a significant number of people, there are many, many other areas. So let's look through the list here. We've got corporate finance. That's why probably most of you are here. We have in excess of 50 publicly traded companies headquartered within an hour of downtown Cleveland. It's an incredible thing. When I first moved here, I heard about people saying, oh, gee, Cleveland used to be such a great place, used to be so productive, used to be this, used to be that. Well, believe me, I've lived in a lot of different parts of the country. I can tell you, it's not used to, it still is. I mean, that many corporations. When I was in El Paso, we had count them, two publicly traded companies headquartered in El Paso, and one of them was the electric utility company. They did some interesting things, but come on, give me a break. 50 plus, that's huge. So many of you probably already worked for those companies or you've interned with them. We'll talk about more of that in just a second. Financial planning, it's another great area. Completely different than corporate finance, very different set of skills. You're dealing much more with people, with individuals, with families, and it may be families of high net worth, or it may be families of just average middle class folks looking to figure out how to plan their financial house and put the kids through college, buy a house, retire, pass on the estate to the children, and so forth. We just started a major a few years ago, and it's growing gangbusters. So think about that too. If you're not quite into the heavy duty number crunching thing, financial planning might be your cup of tea. There's a little bit of that in there. You need to understand it, but a lot of it is just knowing about the tax laws, understanding some of the Social Security, government-related programs, things of that nature, as well as securities and understanding how to invest. And then the rest of it is interrelating with people, with the families, sitting down with them, learning about them, teaching them. Hedge funds, I'm not going to go through this in great detail. You probably heard about hedge funds, but insurance, investment banking, money management, private equity, and real estate. All of these areas have a finance or are heavily finance related. Real estate certainly has a finance component. I'm not talking about being a real estate agent. I'm talking about being a mortgage broker, something of that nature. So the career paths are varied. As far as corporate finance, every corporation needs a finance function. That's why I mentioned those 50 publicly traded corporations that are headquartered right here in Cuyahoga County, or very close to, within about an hour of downtown. Firms have to do a variety of things. They're going to analyze new projects, which they hope will increase the value of the firm. We're going to talk about that extensively, capital budgeting. We're going to talk about how to come up with the cash flows, how to figure out what discount rate to apply to those cash flows, and then figure out, is this a project that's going to increase the value of the firm or not? More on corporate here, raising funds, issuing securities. They've got to select the proper mix. That's called capital structure or leverage. Firms have to manage their financial resources in the most efficient manner. Various job titles within that realm: treasurer, financial analyst, credit manager, cash manager, benefits manager, IR, controller. IR sounds like a fun job. I've always thought about that as a potential job. Basically, you are the go-between between the investors in the company and the company itself. You work for the company, but you help the investors understand why they should own stock in that particular company. If you look at financial analysts, just pulled this off the web. So this is recent data. This is the lower quartile to upper quartile, so 25th percentile to 75th percentile, between $53,000 and $77,000 a year for the rookie. This is not some average of people who've been out in the field for 10 years. No, this is for a rookie financial analyst. So the pay is quite attractive too. Careers in other areas are often more lucrative. However, you really have to put in the time. Investment banking is one of those, hedge funds, private equity. There, the salaries are, in excess of 6 digits, or up into in the 6-digit range. However, you're going to eat, sleep, and drink that job. I've had a number of students in the past who have gone that route, and many of them end up backing off into something else after a few years. It is just intense. There was one young lady who went to work right before 9/11, and she was walking into the towers when the first plane hit. Luckily, she was late. Otherwise, she would have been in the tower. And she decided after that was the final blow. Of course, I mean, it was tragic. But even without that sort of tragedy as an impetus, many people find that just way too much focus on work. They want a more balanced life. But finance still offers that, in particular corporate finance. Regular, not investment banking, but commercial banking offers that as well. Cleveland is a great spot for both of those things. We've got a number of great regional commercial banks in the area. Obviously, Key Bank, but we've got Huntington. We've got Fifth Third, we've got PNC, not all headquartered here, but all with a major influence here. We have the Federal Reserve Bank of Cleveland. That's a organization related that's a quasi-governmental federal organization. Lots of positions down there. And then, obviously, the corporate finance influence. Oops, somehow I kept backing up my slides there. Sorry about that. These hedge funds, investment banking, PE jobs, they're hard to get, highly competitive, just intense hours. You're talking 100+ hours a week, literally sleeping in the office right before a pitch, and you don't go home for days. But some of you might want to try it out. Sounds pretty exciting, and it's definitely rewarding. Here are a couple of names. You've probably heard of them now. Not too long ago, you may not have. Deutsche Bank was in the news for some rather not such good reasons, but as an example, Deutsche Bank, they employ 78,000 or so people across 70 different countries. So if you want to travel, investment banking might be a good spot to be. Click on this link right here if you want to learn a little bit more about Deutsche Bank. Another major presence in the investment banking realm is Barclays Global. Again, close to 80,000 people employed by Barclays. Now that goes up and down over time, especially during a recession. The jobs will shrink down, but they also have a presence that's global. So, there are many opportunities out there. They're just crazy with lots of opportunities. Here are just a sampling of some of the major corporations that call Cleveland home. We've got Goodyear Tire, we've got Progressive, we've got Parker Hannifin, Sherwin-Williams, Eaton, Lincoln Electric, Diebold. And obviously I'm leaving out 40 plus of these companies. They require many individuals in a finance capacity. Virtually every one of these companies, you go to them and you're going to find John Carroll undergrads in those companies. We are fortunate to be in that position, and a lot of our undergrads come back to John Carroll to look for, or a lot of our alum, I should say, come back to John Carroll to look for new employees. So you're sitting in a good position with that. All right. So here's a link to an Indeed page that gives you some additional details about various career paths in finance. Now let's get to the course itself, right? So we're going to do a little bit of review, starting off looking at time value of money, reviewing that. It's so important. It's fundamental to everything we do in finance, especially in corporate finance, but pretty much everywhere. You're going to see some variation on time value of money, present value, future value, with payments, single sum, lump sums, you name it. The only difference is that you've got a variety of cash flows both in and out of the firm, and you have to be very careful about how you treat those. The riskiness of them and the timing of them are important, and we're going to go over some of those in detail in the class. We'll talk about capital structure, that is how much debt we have relative to the equity piece. We'll talk extensively about capital budgeting. We're going to discuss payout policy. Dividends are only one form of payout. There's repurchases, which are much more popular these days than dividends. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Working capital management, we'll delve a little bit into investment banking and how they serve the corporations to help them to do their transactions. We'll look at mergers and acquisitions at the end of the class, and as well as long-term debt, refunding of long-term debt in particular, and then the leasing versus borrow-buy decision. So we've got a pretty full semester, especially doing it in 7 weeks. You folks are going to be busy. I hope you're not taking another class. Remember, taking a single 3-credit class in 7 weeks is like taking 2 classes during a normal semester. So plan on spending a lot of time on this. If you're taking a second class this semester, I hope that you're not having to work. So if you work full time and you're taking a class, yeah, you could do it, but you're not going to have much time for anything else. But you get this class done. So keep that in mind. If you want to talk about any of that with me privately, I'm happy to have a discussion with you. But I would not recommend trying to do, say, like 2 classes and working. That's not going to work out well for you. Something's got to give in that, and it's probably going to be one of the classes, and I don't want that to happen to you. All right, so some additional details. The syllabus is available on Canvas. We're going to look at that in just a moment. The textbook is Corporate Finance by Ross Westerfield, Jaffe, Jordan, and Shu. It's the 13th edition. It's a good book. It's been around a while. Brad Jordan in particular joined up with this a while back, and he's a really good writer. So the book is well written, and it's got a long track record and is widely used across the globe. We'll also do a little bit of some readings out of the Wall Street Journal as it pertains to corporate finance. And we do have a free subscription for every student and faculty and staff member at John Carroll. So details about that are going to be on the Canvas page. And grading is following this. So we've got about 150 points for participation. That's either in class or in the online discussion forums. Another 150 points for reading. Now, the Smart Book actually doesn't just have you read. It actually has you read, and then it throws a few questions about that reading to see how well you've done. I like that system. I've engaged it in the Connect, in McGraw-Hill's Connect product. And so you're going to be answering questions. Try to get them right. I understand if you don't get them right, it starts peppering you with more questions. So be careful. Read carefully and then carefully select an answer so that you minimize the number of questions. I know that I've had some students in the past get frustrated, but part of that is simply that the system sees that you got the wrong answer and it goes, well, why don't you go back to this section and reread it? But I think it's a useful method of learning. So we're doing that. Homework counts for another 200 points. That's half the class between those three activities. Now, there's no reason that you shouldn't get the vast majority, if not 100% of those points. By the way, on the homework, all I ask is that you make a credible attempt. You don't even have to get it all right. You'll get full credit, 100%, as long as you turn it in on time. So don't let those assignments go by without getting them turned in. At least get a portion of it done, and you'll get credit, as long as you made a credible attempt, right? It's got to be credible. You can't just, run through answer if you get, 10% and expect that to count. But if you make a credible effort, you turn it in on time, you're going to get full credit for it. The other half of the class is the midterm and the final exam. And that one, there's going to be some variation. That's basically what separates the A's from the B's from the C's. I like to separate this out and think about this in two lumps. We've got basically the effort that you're putting in here comes in these three items. You don't learn anything without effort. Sleeping with your book under your pillow, that is not helping. I've tried it. It doesn't work. Especially your computer, because you'll probably break the screen. So put in some effort. This second section down here is basically your way of showing me that you did put in some effort and that you learned something. So keep that in mind. Don't be too disappointed on the grades on these. I do usually curve the exams. If you're used to a class that is more heavily exam weighted, say 75, 80% exams, you're going to find that these exam grades look low. That doesn't mean you're not going to get an A. You can get 80s on the exams, and as long as you do the rest of this work, you can still get an A, or at least an A minus, certainly a B plus. So put in the effort. That's what I'm signaling to you. And if you put in the effort and you take it seriously and you spend the time, the exams should come without any difficulty. Here's how I convert points into letter grades. I'm sure you've seen this. It's on the syllabus, so I won't bore you with going through that. Midterm and final exams are multiple choice, true, false, and matching. Usually more multiple choice than anything else. But I also do the matching piece because terminology is important. Understanding the lingo is very important. You can't go into a finance job and not understand the lingo. You won't get it. All right, so that is it for my introductory slides. All right, let me give you a tour of the Canvas site here for the class. So both classes will be using the same Canvas page. I'm going to load the 4440 folks into the 5551 page here. And so this is the home page. This is what you'll see. And I recommend that you click on this Start Here Welcome. And this will give you a little bit of information about getting the textbook. And like I said, we're using the SmartBook, so you effectively have to get the ebook in order to use that. So get the ebook along with the Connect product, and you'll be all set. If you want a paper copy, you can always get a 12th or 11th edition, or you can also, there are facilities within McGraw-Hill to allow you to get loose leaf versions of it as well. But that's entirely up to you. then here, the next page, by the way, oh, sorry, I was in the way of that, so let me get out of the way and show you where I clicked. When you're clicking through these modules, down here at the bottom right, there's a next, and at the bottom left, there's a previous. So you can page through this quite easily using those little buttons. I don't know if how many of you have used that functionality within Canvas. This is just a little bit of a bio about me, going into more detail about my research in particular, some of the classes I've taught, and so forth. Here is the syllabus. So this is the all-important syllabus. By the way, it's also available on the link over here under syllabus. You can go direct to a PDF copy, but or you can get a PDF copy right here. Multiple ways to get there, right? And so this describes the textbook, tells you where to go, link into it. Once you get the license from McGraw-Hill, actually when you click here, you'll be allowed to log in and pay for that right here. There's also a video that I link to. Let's see, I believe, oh, that's right over here. So you can click on this link and go to the video that tells you a little bit more about the Connect product and the ebook. Oops, sorry about that. All right. Prerequisites. This is important. If you haven't had 312 or 521 or 5521 or 3312, talk to me. More than likely, I'd recommend that you don't take this class. You probably cannot do well in it, and I don't want to see you get a low grade for that reason. It really does require that you have that background. So hopefully all of you have had that background. You've gotten at least a C or better in those, and you should be just fine in the class. This talks a little bit about student learning outcomes, course schedule, course requirements. We've got exams, homework, smart book activities, and then just some details, all of the usual boilerplate. Here's the evaluation and grading piece of it. Office hours, I'm not going to have any scheduled office hours for the month of July. However, I will be available. I know that I'm going to have Wi-Fi access. I just don't know exactly when, but I will send out announcements letting you all know so that we can get together. Certainly, I will have access to email too, so if you have a question that you want to just shoot off in an email, please do that, and I will get back to you. I can't promise 24-hour turnaround, but I will make every effort to do that for the month while I'm out of town. And then here's the syllabus itself, showing you the topics, when we're going to cover them, what the chapters are out of the textbook. Note here for the midterm, that's July 31st, so put that in your calendars. We're going to stick close to that. I don't think there's any reason we can't make that date. So put that in your calendar. And then, of course, our final exam is on the last day of class. That's August 16th. Put that in your calendar as well. Make sure that you're available. We'll be doing these online with the Lockdown browser, and there are details about that on the Canvas page here. And then other university boilerplate policies, things of that nature. So that's pretty much it for, oops, sorry to scroll around on you like that. Now, the other thing that I want to show you here is under modules. And I've set up this class using modules. So I would highly recommend that when you look at the class, that you look at these modules and pay a lot of attention to that. Here is, again, some just introductory material, boilerplate type stuff. The first day is right here, and if you click on the overview, it will show you exactly what we're going to be doing. So you'll want to go into YouTube and watch my lecture on financial statement analysis and financial models of Chapter 3. And again, I've got this linked here, so it'll take you straight there. However, my YouTube channel is ELLIOWB2, the number 2, and there's a playlist called Corporate Finance. All right, let me get back to Canvas. And here's the reading assignment. I've also noted the due date in here, although that's also available under the Assignments tab in Canvas, and it's also in Connect. You can put them onto your calendar and so forth, so I'm sure that you probably already know how to do all of that. So we've got 2 reading assignments due July 7th. So you're going to read chapters 3 and 4. Then I'd also like you to create, if you don't already have a Barron's account and a Wall Street Journal account, both of those are free to John Carroll's students, faculty, and staff. And then here are the details down here as to how to do that. So let me know if you run into any difficulties, but you'll want to use your JCU email address for both of those. All right, so that's the overview. And then let's go back. So there are also resources here. So for instance, chapter 3 slides, PowerPoints that I use for the lecture are available right here for your use. So if you want to download them and follow along with the lecture, I actually have them up on the screen behind me. And so, you'll be able to see me there with the slides up here. But, if you want to use them to study, what have you. All right. Go back. And then here's the details about the subscriptions, so you can go to it here. Like I said, multiple ways to get to various things. Okay, so that's day 1. That's the 5th. Day 2 is actually the it's the 10th, right? Discounted cash flow valuation, and again, go to the overview. If you're not sure what to do, here's a list of what you need to do for that day. So that's important. Here are the assignments. I've grouped them based upon homework and then readings. I'll also have the midterm and the final exam will eventually be in these assignments. That's pretty much it as far as the Canvas page, I believe. Leaving anything out? I don't think so. So I've got the what you'll see is I've got up through that will be through the end of July, where you'll have the lectures online on YouTube. You'll have the homework assignments, the reading assignments, and everything. And I'll finish out the rest of this early in July. Student view, let me just show you what it's going to look like to you. Very similar, right? So if you want to see the overview, and this is what you do. If you want to read, go click on that. It'll automatically take you to the Connect page, and you'll be able to sign in for the class. Let me know if you have any trouble signing in. All right, that's something I need to know right away. So if you have any difficulties there, shoot me an email, and I will try to get back to you right away and straighten anything out. All right, let's go back. Reload this. Okay. Here we go. And, I know one other thing I wanted to mention. The discussion forum. So if you have any questions about the class, if there are individual things, you can email them to me. But if there's something that might apply to the rest of the students as well, pop them up here in the discussion forum. There's another one here that actually is for homework problems, and use that. Ignore the ones down below. We're not going to do that on every chapter. This is actually from a different class. I use the same format no matter what the class is. and I just haven't deleted these discussion forums here. But these two at the top are the forums that you'll use. So take advantage of that as well. All right, I believe that is it for that piece of it. Let me switch back here to my office. Actually, this is a photograph I shot when we were at one of the hedge funds in New York City on the student trip. This was back in January of 2019, right before we, that was the last trip that we did. No, I take that back. That was second to last trip we did to New York City before COVID kicked in. But we're back to doing student trips, and they are awesome. If you have an opportunity to be a part of those student trips, it's through the Student Finance Association. Take advantage of that. You learn a lot. I learned a lot. You get to see really cool offices, kind of get a sense of, hey, I think I could work here. So anyway, so just to reiterate the synchronous versus asynchronous portions of the class, the month of July, we are going to be asynchronous. So it's going to be up to you to watch the videos. They're all on YouTube. It's going to be up to you to do the readings and the homeworks. Keep track of that and make sure that you get them in on time. And if you have any problems or difficulties, email me. I will send out some announcements as soon as I know what my schedule is going to be and where I'll have access to Wi-Fi. I'm going to be about 6 hours ahead. So, but we'll still do a 6:30. I can certainly even more easily do earlier things if that's something that you would like. If you'd like to do an office hour a bit earlier than that, that would be great. But we will do some homework review sessions and kind of Q&A type things at the regularly appointed times, Monday and Wednesday, 6:30 p.m. And we'll use Zoom for that. So let me leave it at that. If you have any other questions, feel free to email me. And I look forward to meeting all of you at least virtually here in the very near future. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.